Pain is a fundamental part of human existence. No matter how much we try to avoid or suppress it, it will always find a way to manifest itself. However, what the Stoics teach us is that pain is not an enemy to fear, but an opportunity to seize. The key is to recognize and accept it. Accepting pain is not surrendering to it, but understanding that it is part of our nature. This recognition allows us to start processing it instead of ignoring or fighting it. If we only seek to escape from it, we miss the lesson that pain has to teach us. Pain, in its essence, is inevitable. But if we accept it as a teacher, instead of seeing it as a burden, we can begin to understand that what happens to us is an opportunity for growth. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic thinkers, said that the universe is always changing, and that what we consider as suffering may be the very nature of the transformation process. Instead of falling into despair, we can recognize that pain is preparing us to be stronger and wiser. In this process of recognition, it's not about seeking immediate comfort or denying the difficult emotions that arise, but seeing pain through the eyes of a learner. Every time we face a challenge or suffering, we are training in resilience and the ability to adapt to the unexpected. Pain, then, ceases to be just an obstacle. It becomes a force that pushes us to evolve. Accepting pain is an act of courage, of openness to what we cannot control, and of willingness to learn from every experience, no matter how painful it may be. Change of perspective. Once we have recognized pain, the next step is to change our perspective on it. The way we interpret suffering is crucial. The Stoics teach us that what really matters is not what happens to us, but how we interpret it and how we choose to react to it. Pain doesn't have to be a punishment. It can be the spark that ignites the fire of personal growth. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, says that it is not the things that disturb us, but our opinions about things. This principle is key in the process of emotional release. We must change the narrative we tell ourselves about pain. Instead of seeing ourselves as victims of life, we can choose to rewrite our story. Pain can be seen not as an enemy, but as a challenge that offers deep learning. By changing our view of suffering, we begin to let go of the victim mentality and adopt an empowerment mentality. Suffering can teach us many things: patience, strength, compassion, and the importance of impermanence. If we see pain as a teacher, we can transform the negative experience into an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. This change of perspective requires constant practice. It is not easy, especially when we are in the midst of a crisis or a painful moment. But as we practice it, our perception of pain transforms. Stop focusing on loss and suffering and start focusing on what we can learn from them completely changes our experience. Instead of feeling defeated, we begin to feel that every challenge is an opportunity to build a stronger and more resilient version of ourselves. This change not only has the power to transform how we face pain, but also how we live our lives in general. By interpreting suffering as an opportunity, we begin to see life itself as a series of lessons, an opportunity to evolve and learn at every step of the way. Action towards growth. Emotional and personal growth is not just a process of thought, but a process of action. Pain can be a powerful motivator for change, but that change will not happen with reflection alone. It is necessary to take concrete steps towards growth. The Stoics teach us that action is the true engine of progress. Epictetus said that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control our response. This implies making daily decisions that lead us towards personal improvement, regardless of what pain or adversity may make us feel at that moment. Pain can leave us paralyzed if we let it rule our emotions. Therefore, the next step is to take action. It's not just about thinking about what we want to change, but acting accordingly. If pain has shown us a weakness, an insecurity, or a limitation, it's time to address those areas of our life with determination. Growth is not achieved with thoughts and reflections alone, but with real steps that lead us towards a state of greater well-being. This is the time when we must commit to changing habits, improving our mental health, working on our relationships, setting clear goals, and making decisions aligned with our values. No matter how small the step, every action counts. By implementing small changes, we start moving towards a fuller life, taking control over our story, and moving away from victimization. Emotional resilience is built with consistent daily actions. Taking the reins of our emotions implies acting, not just thinking. Emotions, if not managed, can take control, but conscious action has the power to lead us to a space of peace. The daily practices we implement, such as taking care of our body, managing our emotions, or learning new skills, become the foundations of sustainable growth. These actions not only heal emotional wounds, but also allow us to develop beyond what pain taught us, moving towards a stronger version of ourselves. To ensure that growth and transformation are sustainable, we must incorporate daily practices that help us stay the course. These practices not only serve as an antidote to pain, but as a constant way to strengthen our emotional resilience. Consistency is key. Over time, these practices become habits that support us in our continuous evolution. The first practice is to eliminate visual memories. When we seek to free ourselves emotionally, the environment plays a fundamental role in our well-being. Visual memories, such as photos, objects, or any image that evokes past emotions, have a powerful influence on our mental state. Often, without realizing it, these images keep us trapped in an emotional cycle that prevents us from moving forward. Instead of leaving them as mere decorations, we should consider how these memories continue to affect our ability to heal and grow. Eliminating visual memories is not about forgetting what we have lived, but about making room for the present. Each image or object that we see repeatedly has the power to trigger an emotional response. If these images are related to painful experiences, every time we see them, our emotions are dragged back to those moments of suffering. This process of constant reactivation can strengthen emotional bonds with the past, preventing us from moving towards a healthier future. The practice of eliminating visual memories is therefore a liberating action. When we decide to remove these elements from our environment, we are not only physically cleaning the space, but also making an internal declaration that we are ready to let go. Freeing ourselves from objects that represent sadness or pain is an act of profound self-care, because it allows us to reconfigure our relationship with the past. By doing so, we create an atmosphere that favors our well-being and healing. This process does not require rushing. It can be gradual and should be done consciously, choosing what no longer has a positive or constructive value for our life. It is essential to be selective and reflective, as each visual memory has an impact. When we remove something, we are allowing ourselves to release trapped emotional energy, creating space for new experiences, memories, and healthier relationships. By cleaning our environment of memories that limit us, we are giving ourselves permission to heal. This symbolic act of eliminating what no longer serves becomes a powerful first step towards emotional transformation. It allows us to recognize that our well-being is directly related to the decisions we make about what we keep in our life. By doing so, we give ourselves the opportunity to live fully in the present, without the shadows of what no longer exists. The second practice is to let go of romantic ideals. On many occasions, we cling to romantic ideals that, although attractive in theory, distance us from reality and keep us trapped in unrealistic expectations. These ideals are mental constructs that project an idealized vision of relationships, love, and life in general. When we fail to meet these expectations, the emotional pain can be profound, as we face the frustration that our experiences do not match the fantasy we had in mind. Letting go of romantic ideals is an essential practice to regain our emotional peace. These ideals, often influenced by movies, books, or even past experiences, make us expect relationships to be perfect, without conflict, without imperfections, and always filled with eternal passion. But the reality is that authentic relationships require effort, understanding, communication, and mutual growth. By clinging to an idealized vision of love, we are creating a barrier that prevents us from seeing the beauty of what we truly have or can build. Releasing these ideals does not mean abandoning the desire to have a deep or meaningful relationship, but rather accepting that true love does not fit the molds of perfection we have created in our minds. It is an act of opening our eyes to the authenticity of our interactions, to the imperfection that makes them real and valuable. Love and relationships do not need to follow a perfect formula. It's about connection, respect, and joint growth. By letting go of these ideals, we begin to accept that mistakes, differences, and imperfections are an integral part of any successful relationship. This change in perspective allows us to enjoy love without the pressure of meeting unrealistic expectations. It frees us from the anxiety generated by trying to live according to a script that does not belong to us. By living in a more authentic and realistic way, we allow ourselves to be happier and more satisfied in our relationships, enjoying what we truly have, instead of struggling for something that only exists in our minds. In this process of release, we become more open to new forms of love and connection without the need for everything to fit an ideal. This practice not only improves our ability to love, but also our ability to accept and value what really matters in our relationships. The third practice is to undertake a personal retreat. Amidst the daily hustle and bustle, we often find ourselves caught up in external demands, whether it's work, relationships, or social expectations. All of this can leave us emotionally drained, without time to reflect, restore our balance, and reconnect with our essence. Undertaking a personal retreat is a powerful practice that allows us to disconnect from the external noise and focus on our own internal process. A personal retreat does not need to be something complicated or costly. It can be as simple as taking a day or a weekend for oneself, without distractions, without the pressure of meeting others' expectations. It is a space to focus on self-awareness, to stop and reflect on what we really want, how we feel, and what changes we want to make in our lives. In this space, we can step away from daily routines and rediscover our inner voice, the one that often gets drowned out by everyday worries. During this time, we can dedicate it to activities that nourish our mind and spirit, such as meditation, journal writing, reading books that inspire us, or simply introspection in nature. The goal is not to run away from our responsibilities, but to give our mind the rest it needs to process emotions, thoughts, and important decisions. By temporarily distancing ourselves from sources of stress, we can achieve a clarity that allows us to make decisions more aligned with our true desires and needs. The personal retreat also helps us to strengthen our relationship with ourselves. In a world that constantly demands us to be available for others, this alone time is a reminder that our own inner peace and well-being are fundamental. By practicing this disconnection, we are able to recharge our energies, give ourselves permission to be vulnerable, and heal from experiences that have affected us. It is important to remember that a personal retreat should not be seen as an escape from our problems, but as an opportunity to face them with a new perspective. This space gives us the chance to heal, to reinvent ourselves, and to emerge with a greater understanding of what we truly want and need to move forward in our process of emotional transformation. The fourth practice is to adopt a growth mindset approach. One of the most common barriers in the process of emotional release is our mindset about difficulties and pain. Often, when we go through tough situations, we fall into the trap of believing that suffering defines who we are, or that we will never be able to overcome it. Adopting a growth mindset is a transformative practice that allows us to see pain and challenges as opportunities for evolution, rather than insurmountable barriers. A growth mindset, as defined by psychologist Carol Jung, is based on the belief that our abilities and emotions are not fixed, but can evolve over time, effort, and reflection. This mindset allows us to face our emotional experiences with a proactive attitude, seeing each obstacle as a stepping stone towards overcoming. Instead of lamenting what we have lost or what we have not yet achieved, we focus on what we can learn and how we can improve through our experiences. Emotional pain may seem like an unbearable burden, but when we adopt this approach, we begin to see difficult emotions as signals of growth rather than threats. Every time we face a loss, a failure, or an emotional challenge, we have the opportunity to ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? Or how can I transform myself from this experience? This shift in perspective is crucial to free our emotions from the claws of endless suffering. The growth mindset allows us to understand that pain does not define us. It is just a stage in our journey towards a stronger and more resilient version of ourselves. It helps us recognize that the process of healing and growing is not linear, and that stumbling is a natural part of the journey. By adopting this approach, we give ourselves permission to make mistakes, to be vulnerable, and to move forward without getting stuck in fear or self-criticism. When we apply a growth mindset to our emotional life, we stop being victims of our feelings and become active agents of our healing. We learn to accept that pain can be a powerful tool for self-discovery, self-care, and emotional release. This approach allows us to transform what was once a burden into an opportunity to learn more about ourselves and how we can live with more balance, peace, and purpose. The fifth practice is to redefine your personal identity. One of the most powerful ways to emotionally liberate ourselves is to review and, when necessary, redefine our personal identity. Often, difficult experiences, social expectations, and limiting beliefs about ourselves bind us to a version of the past that no longer serves us. We define ourselves by the labels that others have imposed on us, or by the roles we have adopted over the years. Freeing ourselves from these old definitions gives us the power to reconfigure who we truly are. Redefining our personal identity is a process that requires self-exploration and courage. It involves questioning the beliefs and narratives we have adopted about ourselves. How do we see ourselves? Are we the person we believe to be, or have we simply been responding to the expectations of others? This process can be uncomfortable, but it is essential to break the emotional chains that keep us anchored to old patterns of thought and behavior. To begin redefining our identity, we must give ourselves permission to rethink who we are outside of our past circumstances. If we have gone through a period of suffering, failure, or loss, it is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that these experiences define us. However, each of us has the ability to transform, to learn, and to evolve. What has happened to us does not have to dictate our identity. We can choose which aspects of our life we want to leave behind and which ones we want to integrate into a new version of ourselves. This process of redefinition also involves stripping ourselves of the expectations that others have about us. True emotional liberation comes when we stop being who others expect us to be and start living according to our own values and desires. Through this act, we allow ourselves to take control of our personal narrative. We free ourselves from the stories that no longer serve us and open ourselves to new possibilities. Redefining our identity is not something that happens overnight. It is an ongoing process, which requires constant introspection and the willingness to challenge our own beliefs. By doing so, we create a space where we can be authentically ourselves, without the weight of past expectations, allowing us to live in a more free, coherent, and empowered way. The sixth practice is to write a letter to your future self. Often, we are so focused on the present that we forget that our emotional and personal evolution is a continuous journey. Writing a letter to your future self is a powerful practice that not only allows you to reflect on your current process, but also to visualize the person you wish to become. This writing exercise gives you the opportunity to establish a connection between your present and the future you are building, which can be incredibly liberating. When writing this letter, you can start by reflecting on your current feelings, your challenges, and your deepest desires. What emotions are you experiencing at this moment? What obstacles do you feel are preventing you from moving forward? This is the opportunity to pour out your thoughts and emotions, uncensored, and give them space to be expressed. The letter is a bridge between who you are now and who you wish to be in the future. However, the most powerful part of this practice is what follows: speaking to your future self. Imagine that you are writing to someone who has managed to overcome the challenges you are facing now. Visualize how you would like to feel in the future, how you hope to have grown, and what emotional and personal achievements you would like to have reached. How do you imagine your life will be in a few months or years? What kind of person do you want to become? This letter is a way to remind yourself of what you truly wish to achieve, not only in terms of external goals, but also on an emotional and psychological level. The act of writing to your future self has a transformative power because it invites you to give direction to your journey. By writing about the future you desire, you are creating a clear and powerful image of what you want to be. This exercise not only motivates you to keep moving forward, but also allows you to build a positive and hopeful vision of your own growth and evolution. Once written, keep the letter and review it in the future. You will see how your perspective changes, how your goals develop, and how you have transformed into the person you once imagined. Writing to your future self is a way to plant the seeds for change, helping you to release the fear of the future and embrace it with hope and determination. The seventh practice is to shift your focus on love. Love, despite being one of the most powerful emotions we experience, is often distorted by unrealistic beliefs and expectations. In the pursuit of love, we often fall into the trap of thinking that our happiness depends on someone else validating us, completing us, or making us feel fulfilled. This misguided approach to love puts us in a position of emotional vulnerability, where our well-being depends on factors outside our control. Changing this focus is crucial for our emotional liberation. The practice of shifting your focus on love starts with self-love. Instead of seeking constant validation from others, we need to learn to love and value ourselves first. Self-love is not selfishness, but a form of respect and care for our essence. This shift in perspective allows us to understand that if we cannot love and accept ourselves as we are, it will be very difficult to offer genuine love to others. When we work on our self-esteem and give ourselves permission to be complete without the need to depend on anyone else, we transform our relationship with love. This shift not only applies to self-love, but also to how we relate to others. Many times, we enter relationships with expectations that lead us to think that love should be perfect, without conflicts and without changes. However, true love is dynamic and evolves over time. Changing the focus implies accepting that relationships should not be based on perfection, but on commitment, mutual respect, and joint growth. Learning to value love in its various forms, even with its imperfections, allows us to enjoy more authentic and satisfying relationships. In addition, love should not be a burden or an emotional need, but an experience of freedom. True love is the one that liberates us and allows us to grow, not the one that consumes us or limits us. By shifting the focus towards a healthier love, we free ourselves from the fear of loss, the fear of not being good enough, and emotional dependence. Shifting your focus on love is an essential step towards an emotionally free and balanced life. It allows us to build healthier, genuine, and lasting relationships in which both self-love and love for others flourish without ties or expectations. The eighth practice is to dedicate time to the development of new skills. The process of emotional release not only involves healing past wounds, but also expanding our capacity to face the future. One of the most powerful ways to do this is to dedicate time to the development of new skills. This process not only improves our self-confidence, but also helps us to rebuild a stronger identity, free from the emotional limitations that may have held us back in the past. When we focus on learning something new, we create a space for personal and emotional growth. Continuous learning not only involves acquiring knowledge in professional areas, but also the discovery and practice of activities that we are passionate about, such as playing an instrument, learning a new language, or practicing meditation. By engaging in these activities, we are improving our ability to handle stress and emotions, as skill development challenges us to step out of our comfort zone and cultivate patience, perseverance, and resilience. In addition, the development of new skills allows us to redefine our relationship with failure. When we undertake the learning of something new, it is inevitable to make mistakes. However, instead of seeing these mistakes as personal failures, we turn them into learning opportunities. This change in perspective is crucial for our emotional release, as it teaches us to see obstacles not as barriers, but as stepping stones to growth. Dedicating ourselves to learning something new also strengthens our self-esteem. Each skill we acquire, no matter how small, reminds us that we are capable of adapting, evolving, and advancing. This type of achievement contributes to creating a growth mindset, where our abilities are not seen as fixed, but as something that can always be expanded. By acquiring new skills, we also acquire a new vision of ourselves, richer and more empowered. Finally, Dedicating time to developing new skills gives us a sense of purpose and direction. By committing to the learning process, we ensure that we are investing in ourselves, improving our lives, and freeing ourselves from the emotional limitations that prevent us from moving forward. The ninth practice is to carry out an emotional detox. In the modern world, we are constantly exposed to an avalanche of stimuli, emotions, and situations that can deeply affect our well-being. Performing an emotional detox becomes an essential practice to free our mind and heart from the emotional burdens we accumulate over time. This detox involves a conscious process of cleansing our emotions from toxic influences and energy-draining thoughts. The first step in an emotional detox is to recognize which emotions or situations are draining us. This could be prolonged stress, toxic relationships, social expectations, or simply a life full of worries and fears. These negative energies affect our ability to be in the present and limit our capacity to experience peace and well-being. Identifying and acknowledging what causes us emotional pain is the first step to freeing ourselves from that burden. Once these emotions or circumstances are identified, the next step is to take a step back and create emotional distance. This may involve distancing ourselves from people or situations that constantly affect us negatively. Sometimes, a simple, honest conversation with others about how we feel can be liberating, while at other times, it may be necessary to cut or reduce interaction with certain sources of stress. In addition, it is important to practice forgiveness as part of this process. Resentment and grudges are some of the most toxic emotions we can store. Forgiving does not mean forgetting, but freeing ourselves from the emotional weight that these experiences impose on us. By forgiving, we not only free others, but we also free ourselves from the chains of emotional suffering. A key aspect of emotional detox is the creation of a space for tranquility and reflection. This can be through meditation, mindfulness, or even moments of solitude in nature. These spaces allow us to process our emotions, renew our energy, and reconnect with our inner peace. By practicing this detox, we also create the opportunity to replace negative thoughts with affirmations of self-acceptance, gratitude, and hope. Performing an emotional detox is a powerful way to regain control over our emotional life, allowing us to live in a lighter, more conscious, and balanced way. The 10th practice is to create a healing journal for your reflections. Writing has a transformative power, especially when it comes to processing our emotions and reflecting on our experiences. Creating a healing journal is a powerful tool that allows you to vent, understand your emotions, and progress in your emotional release process. This journal not only becomes a space for expression, but also a reflection of your growth and self-awareness. The first step to start a healing journal is to establish a space where you feel comfortable and free from distractions. This space can be physical, like a notebook or journal, or digital if you prefer to write on your computer or phone. The important thing is that it is a place where you can be completely honest with yourself, without judgment or filters. The goal is for you to write everything you feel, uncensored, without the need to organize or edit your thoughts. Each entry in the journal is an opportunity to explore what you are experiencing at that moment. You can start by writing about your emotions, the difficulties you face, or the thoughts that trouble you. It's not about writing perfectly, but about allowing yourself to release what is trapped inside of you. By putting your feelings and reflections into words, you give yourself the opportunity to view your thoughts from an external perspective, which is key to understanding and processing them in a healthier way. In addition, the healing journal is an ideal place to practice self-compassion. Often, we are too hard on ourselves when we face emotional challenges. Using the journal to remind yourself that it's okay to feel vulnerable or imperfect allows you to accept your emotions without criticism. Each entry in your journal can become an act of self-love and emotional care, a reminder that your healing process is valid and necessary. As you progress on your journey, the healing journal also becomes a witness to your growth. Rereading your past reflections allows you to observe how you have evolved, how you have learned from difficulties, and how you have strengthened emotionally. Over time, your journal will become an archive of your own healing journey, a place where you can see your transformation and remember how far you have come. Creating a healing journal not only allows you to reflect, but also to heal, learn, and grow deeply.
Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.